Hey everybody, welcome to DadsDen of Pop Culture. We're entering the Christmas season. And at this time of year, I like to do a few Christmassy movies. This year, I decided on Bright Eyes, which is, I suppose people could argue whether it's a Christmas movie or not, but some key events happen on Christmas, and I think it certainly hits some of the emotional themes of Christmas. It is from 1934, and it stars Shirley Temple. Now, obviously, my channel mostly deals with, comic books, sci-fi, superhero-y kind of stuff. But I do handle some other videos, but maybe Shirley Temple seems like an odd thing. But this is DadsDen of Pop Culture, and there's almost nobody bigger in pop culture back in the 30s than Shirley Temple. She was an absolute phenomenon. So prepare for some cuteness, prepare for some drama, prepare for Shirley Temple in Bright Eyes. And as usual, we're going to be going through the different scenes in the film. We're going to talk about, the plot. We're going to talk about the characters, and we're going to talk about a little bit other than that even. And at a certain point, I will bring up the spoiler sign. I think we're safe for a little bit without it. So, with no further ado, Shirley Temple, of course, gets the top billing in this film, but James Dunn is not too far behind. He plays James Loop Merritt. So we're going to be calling him Loop for most of this movie. It refers to like doing a loop in an airplane. He did 3 films with Temple and would later win an Academy Award for his role in A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. He does a nice job in this one. Our director for the film is David Butler. He directed a whole lot of Doris Day pictures, also sort of sunny and cute. And he would later direct on TV shows like Leave It to Beaver and Wagon Train. The movie is written by Butler and Edwin J. Burke, who did several Shirley Temple films as well. A lot of these, it's a studio system, so they find somebody who does well with Shirley Temple. Oftentimes they would stick to it. The screenplay is by Henry Johnson and William Conselman, who also wrote a comic strip called Ella Cinders, which I have recently actually seen pop up on Twitter a couple times. The cinematography in the film is by Arthur Miller, who was nominated for an Academy Award 6 times for How Green Was My Valley, The Song of Bernadette, and Anna and the King of Siam, among other things. The music is by Richard A. Whiting, who wrote Hooray for Hollywood, Ain't We Got Fun, On the Good Ship Lollipop. Oh yeah, it's in this one. And Samuel Kalin, who scored Charlie Chan and Mr. Moto films, which are some of my favorite little, B movies to watch. The film opens at an air terminal. You can see the windsock up on top of the building. Pretty sure we're before the wide use of radar at this point. So this is early aviation. And we get a look at some of the aircraft here, early aircraft. Love this kind of stuff. This one is actually a large biplane. So it kind of looks like, a lot of the single, wing kind of planes or monoplanes, I think they would refer to them. But it actually is a biplane. Loop calls into the tower, letting him know he's coming in for a landing. He asks the controller if Shirley is around. No, not yet, but she's always here when you come in. So we're establishing right now the relationship between Loop and Shirley. Yeah, Shirley Temple is playing Shirley in this one. And then we see the little superstar dressed up like a little aviator trying to hitch a ride. Boy, was it a different time. Remember, this film is from about 90 years ago. One big theme you do get in these movies, and often in this time period, is big, tough, burly guys who turn into softies when they're around little kids. They put out that hard edge, but they're always real nice to little kids. She finally gets a ride with a guy who clearly knows her. So obviously she is, like they said, a fixture at the airfield where Loop does most of his flying. She arrives just as Loop gets there, and he does some loops and some stuff to entertain her in his plane. And she dreams of one day being up there with him when she's older. Loop finally lands and greets his little fan. The movie's going to hit some of the big tropes of that time period and some themes that are in many Shirley Temple movies. One of them is the basic decency of working class folks versus the spoiled upper class. So it needs to establish that decency very early on. These folks may be a little bit earthy, maybe even sometimes a little bit irresponsible. You know, they're kind of like the misfits, but not entirely. But ultimately they're okay. They're good folks. They're decent people. We've seen that already with the truck driver who picks her up and gives her the ride to the airfield. And now we're seeing it with Loop. Note also that this disparity was not necessarily just between the haves and the have-nots. Oftentimes it was with the works and the work-nots. Oftentimes the rich guy in a movie who kind of started at the bottom and had to work himself up turns out to be one of the good guys too. And it's going to be like, you know, sometimes his children, sometimes even his wife, you know, who kind of get addicted to being rich and showing off and the jewels and the fancy cars and all that stuff. And he's kind of, you know, this isn't like it was back in the old days, right? So it's you know, it's not just rich versus poor. Sometimes it's the workers versus folks who kind of live off of the workers. So the little dog there is named Rags. He was in the airplane with Loop. Rags is played by the Cairn Terrier named Terry, who is better known for a movie she did 5 years later, The Wizard of Oz. So that is, in fact, Toto. So we're about 4 minutes into the movie at this point, and the cuteness levels are getting pretty high. We got Shirley Temple and we got Toto from The Wizard of Oz working together. Folks are starting to get cavities in the audience at this point. As Loop and Shirley walk into the terminal, they're greeted by, you know, workers there and pilots, and we find out that this is Christmas Eve. Another plot point, while Loop is taking care of something, Shirley climbs up and kisses this picture and also realizes how dusty it is when she does that. It is a picture of her father. So clearly her father was a pilot who died, probably while flying, which explains how she is now sort of a mascot for the air terminal. You know, these guys have probably known her since, you know, she was just about born. In fact, Loop says, "Your daddy and I were pals ever since we were as big as you were. He was my best friend. That's why I'm your godfather." And we get some scenes here establishing again their relationship. Very effective and very adorable. While they're paging through a scrapbook, Shirley sees an article clipped from the newspaper. Society girl breaks troth with flyer. Adele Martin declares engagement with aviator Merritt is ended. And Merritt is Loop's last name. So this is a girl, a society girl, who basically kind of, you know, broke up with him before they could get married. Yes, this is actually going to come into the film. So again, you do the setup and then you're going to resolve it later. There's a great line here. Shirley remarks that she's a pretty lady. And Loop replies, "But it's not enough to be pretty here," pointing to Shirley's face. "You've got to be pretty in here too," pointing to her heart. How can you be pretty in there? By thinking the right thoughts and doing the right things and eating plenty of spinach. Sums it up rather nicely. I think Popeye would probably agree with that. Another big pop culture icon of the 1930s. Remember I talked about the work knots earlier. Well, here's one of them. This fancy lady is annoyed that there's nobody there to answer the phone for her, and she's not thrilled when the phone call is for Mary, who is Shirley's mom, who works as a maid in this residence. And here we see that Shirley's mom is equally nice and sweet to her daughter. The apple did not fall far from the tree. Shirley's mom is played by Lois Wilson, regarded as the first Miss Alabama, although it wasn't technically a Miss Alabama contest at the time. She appeared in a whole lot of silent and sound pictures. So, of course, the fancy lady balls her out for getting phone calls and for all the aviators she associates with. And then this smug jerk walks in and says he's warned her it wouldn't work out. These two are the Smythes. J. Wellington Smythe, played by Theodore Van Eltz, father of Laurie March, the first lady of daytime soaps, and Anita Smythe, played by Dorothy Christie. Anita decides to fire Mary after the holidays are over. Boo hiss. Not a good person. To reinforce the good versus the bad here, we next see Mary in the kitchen chatting with the cook, Elizabeth Higgins, played by Jane Darwell, who won an Academy Award as Ma Joad in The Grapes of Wrath. The man between them is Higgins, the butler, and Elizabeth's husband, played by Brandon Hurst, who once served in the King's Dragoon Guards in India, and he played opposite Garbo in the film Love. Elizabeth is an Irish lady, and the Smythes really get her Irish up. Again, these are working class folks, hard workers, having to deal with a couple of spoiled brats. Well, of course, the Smythes have been blessed with a child of their own, Jane, a spoiled brat, if there ever was one. Here, she is screaming about having to take a piano lesson. Shirley Temple movies were sometimes a bit heavy-handed in the messaging, of course, but they were aimed at a young audience. Still, kids like this yelling and screaming and throwing temper tantrums are very real, as we all know if you've ever had to spend time outside your own home, or maybe if you have one of these at home, if you spent time at home. Plus, the little girl does not believe in Santa Claus. Definitely a bad seed. When father tells her she must do as her mother says, mother stops him. The child psychologist said the child's mind must never be coerced. Yeah. So the namby-pamby stuff with raising children, it started a long time ago, and it is churning out brats to this very day. In the end, they bribe her. What does she want for this bribe? She wants a machine gun. Okay, thankfully they don't give her that, but I guess I do respect that a little bit. When she gets to the piano, she mostly just pounds on it as loudly as possible. Now, this role is played by Jane Withers, who was a very bankable child star at the time, and frankly, she's really good in this. You're gonna sort of hate this character because she plays the character so very, very well. Well, we've got another member of this happy family to introduce. Wheelchair-bound Uncle Ned, who wants somebody to help him down the stairs. He's kind of yelling at people to do it. Nobody arrives, so he decides to do it the hard way. He's got spunk, and that's kind of a character from back then. I kind of even to this day, the old guy who's, kind of cantankerous, got a lot of spunk, etc. I don't know that he's cantankerous, but Dick Van Dyke just turned 100 years old, and he's still moving around pretty good. So it's that kind of a model. So he balls out the Smythes and calls for Mary. And when she refers to him as Mr. Smythe, he replies that his name is Smith. So the Smythe thing is obviously an affectation taken by his relatives. And then he yells at the brat, warns that if things don't change around here, he's not going to stick around, and they need the inheritance. He might leave them. So he also tells him to stop telling people I made my money in sanitation engineering. It was sewers, and don't you forget it. These cantankerous old dudes usually turn out to be heroes in this picture. Why? Because again, yes, wealthy, but he's still kind of a regular guy. Remember that the Bible does not tell us that money is the root of all evil. It says that love of money is the root of all evil. You can be wealthy, certainly, without being evil. It's all about where you put your priorities and, to some degree, how you got that money in the first place. So big change of scene. Shirley and Loop and Rags all having a laugh. They head off for home in a motorcycle with a sidecar, which is very cool. But again, they're showing you right off the bat. Here's the wealthy Smythe house, and everybody's angry and everybody's yelling at each other. And here's all these working stiffs at the airfield, laughing and having a good time, friendly, etc. Well, back at the house, we see Shirley being sweet and Joy, the little brat, being obnoxious. She's riding around on the tricycle, making a racket, annoying Uncle Ned, chasing Shirley. Shirley is carrying trash to the incinerator. And once there, she discovers a doll that Joy has thrown away. And she decides she's going to fix it. And you can guess how this will go. When Joy sees it, she grabs it. That's my doll. You can't have her. Shirley says that if Joy were to give it to her, she'd clean her face and make clothes for her. Joy's answer is she can't have her because she's going to kill her. And she proceeds to tear the doll to pieces. So Joy's a little psychotic. All of this, of course, reinforcing the characters that are being presented to us. And it's followed by an argument over the existence of Santa Claus. Shirley decides to ask Uncle Ned, there is a Santa Claus, isn't there? And he says, well, what did she say? There isn't. Then there is. So Ned just basically can't stand Joy, and he's on the other side of any argument. He then chases her off when she tries to hit Shirley. So again, Uncle Ned has some good points to him. Well, Loop arrives to let Mary know that he and the boys are throwing Shirley a big Christmas party. And then he sits down with the house servants for a cup of tea and cake. Everything is very friendly and pleasant. And then Anita, the, annoying one there, enters in full sneer mode. Her cousin is arriving tomorrow from New York, and everything must be just right. And Mary is reminded about not having visitors. How can you stand working for people like that? Oh, I don't mind. It could be worse, and it kind of will get worse. Let's go ahead and bring up the spoiler sign. So I think we've gotten enough of an introduction to the characters at this point. Okay. So we then get this cute scene of mom and daughter, Anita reminding Shirley to hang her stocking. Again, this is Christmas Eve. And Shirley being worried that Santa might bring a present too large for her stocking. Dear Lord, please bless my mother and me, and Loop and all the aviators, Mr. and Mrs. Higgins, Mr. and Mrs. Smythe, Mr. Smith. Do I have to ask him to bless Joy too? Bless Joy too. Make her a good girl. Dear Lord, please see my daddy and wish him a good Christmas from me and my mommy, and tell him we'll love him forever and ever. You just don't get much more adorable than that. It's played well. None of this stuff is played for camp. It's a little melodramatic, but it's played from an honest place. Well, tomorrow is going to be the merriest Christmas they've ever had, Shirley declares. The scene ends with Shirley's mother telling her the Christmas story to the sound of Silent Night being sung in the background. Well, the next morning, the Smythes are opening presents. Uncle Ned reacts to the festivities about like the old man in the Christmas story. That's just kind of like, oh God, they're so noisy. Joy is, of course, angry because she wants a wheelchair like Uncle Ned, not a bunch of stupid toys. Shirley, on the other hand, is very happy that Santa brought her a new doll and a little wind-up man and a sewing kit and candy. Mother sends her off to see Loop, and remember, they're going to have a party for her down there, and they decide she better leave the new doll, Mary Lou, behind just to be safe. While she's at the airport, the Smythes guest, Adele Martin, arrives. What? Adele Martin? Haven't we heard that? Ooh, yeah, wouldn't you know it? It's the lady that jilted Loop all those years ago. The reception from Loop is a little cool, but Miss Martin actually seems very happy to see him. Well, Loop takes Shirley into the party, and all the pilots and staff rush out to surprise her. And then Rags trots in with another new doll for her. This kid is making out like a bandit. Loop has a present for her as well. A magic ring. She's now a Green Lantern. No, if she's ever in trouble or needs something, she's to send that ring to him, and he will come running no matter what. Again, we're dealing with a lot of cuteness here. So you just know there have to be some dark clouds on the horizon. And even though Uncle Ned doesn't believe in Christmas, doesn't quite say bah humbug, but he's close, he gives Mary some money to buy Shirley a present from him. Back at the airport, the party moves aboard one of the airliners. They're not going to take it up. They're just going to sort of taxi around, so she could see what it's like being in an airplane. And they're waiting for Mary, who is still stuck back at the Smythe house, waiting for the arrival of a cake. And here we get a song from Shirley. On the good ship, Lollipop. You know it. I did not realize when I started this movie that this has that song in it. Well, the cake finally arrives, so Mary dashes off to the airport to join the party. And if I could put a double spoiler sign up right now, I would. Remember those dark clouds on the horizon? Yeah. As Mary runs across the street to catch the bus, a man roars around the corner in his car, tries to hit the brakes, and he hits Mary. So I'll be honest, when I watched this, and this is my first watch, I didn't see that coming. I sort of had an idea in my mind how this was going to play out. I didn't guess that. We go right from Good Ship Lollipop to this. They did not mess around in the 1930s when it came to tearjerkers. Well, among the onlookers of the accident are Adele and the chauffeur who was driving her to the house. And just to rub it in. There's the destroyed cake on the ground. The 30s had a lot of melodramatic fare in it, mostly aimed at women, that are not terribly different from soap operas. While Shirley Temple movies were aimed at a younger audience, moms would probably be taking their kids to see these things. So they were, they aimed them at moms as well and gave them that emotional kind of tearjerkery stuff. Then again, it's, Hallmark movies, they may not be quite as dramatic as that, but it's the same kind of thing. So the chauffeur and Adele race back to the airfield and flag down the party plane. And here you can see Loop hearing the news and looking up at the window from which Shirley is smiling and waving at him. This moment also provides an emotional moment between Loop and Adele. We have at this point introduced an extreme tragedy into the story. We had already set up conflict between Loop and Adele, between the Smythes, and frankly, just about everybody who ever came into contact with them. But now we have something more serious that the story is going to have to resolve. Well, Loop doesn't tell Shirley right away. He tries to give her some more fun on this day. Remember, this is Christmas Day. She's lost her mom on Christmas. So a little more fun this day before she has to find out. He and Shirley take the airliner up, something she has always wanted to do. He takes her up into the clouds, to heaven, he says, and there he breaks the news to her about her mom. And you just need to have a heart of stone not to sort of feel this one. And both actors do a really, really nice job with the scene. So here's a chance for redemption by the Smythes. Do they take it? Triple spoilers. No, they do not. They have no legal or moral responsibility towards the child, so it's not their problem. But Mrs. Smythe remarks, the woman worked for us. People will naturally expect us to do something. Well, Uncle Ned ain't having any of that. He and Miss Martin over here, and he explodes. And here, Ned refers to her as Bright Eyes. That's his nickname for her, and therefore, that's the title of the movie. He wants to know why it's impossible for them to keep Shirley. Well, surely, Uncle Ned, you can't expect us to raise our little Joy with the child of a servant. At this point, I wish Uncle Ned had a rocket launcher on his wheelchair, and I think he does too. He doesn't know why they think they are so high and mighty. Anita's dad was a retail butcher, and Jay Wellington's dad started life as a bricklayer. Now listen to me, you two. I want you to understand just one thing. If you ever expect to get anything out of me, you're going to be human enough and decent enough to take Shirley into this house and live. I'll pay for her board and her clothes. So he lets them have it. And Anita and Jay Wellington fall right into blaming one another for the situation. They are rotten through and through. And again, sadly, there are people in the world who are actually that bad. Thankfully not. I don't think it's a big percentage of the world population, but there really are people like that. Well, Adele is on Ned's side on all of this. She would happily bring Shirley into her home. So she stands, I think, as an example of redemption. She was the society girl. She threw Loop over years ago, but perhaps she has learned a few things in the intervening years about what is really important in life. Well, Ned tells her to go down to the airport herself and bring Shirley back, as much so that she can see Loop as to retrieve Bright Eyes. So Ned's doing a little matchmaking there. And now I am jealous of Shirley Temple. That little barrel airplane that she's in is absolutely rad because it rocks back and forth. So you can pretend like I don't know if I can find one sized for me. Probably not. When Adele arrives at the airfield, Loop is still pretty cool towards her. She apologizes, but he's still bitter. She explains the situation, and he knows that the Smythes don't really want Shirley around. But Adele tries to convince him that he needs to let her go for her sake. His life is just no life for this little girl. He agrees that she can go for now, but when he has things settled for her, he's going to take her back and raise her himself. So they explain it to Shirley, and she agrees since Adele is going to be there, and Uncle Ned, that she thinks it's okay. She can handle the Smythes. And if you think it's now clear skies all the way to a happy ending, you do not know 1930s melodramas. We still have 30 minutes left in this picture and plenty of time for more tragedy. Well, before Shirley leaves, Loop reminds her about the magic ring. If she doesn't like it at the Smythes, just send him the ring and he'll come and get her. Well, surprisingly, the next shot shows Joy and Shirley walking their dolls in the little baby carriages, and Joy is not acting like a complete turd for about 5 seconds until she starts smacking her doll for crying. So, wow. Man, this kid is like, when I said she's kind of a psycho, she's really kind of a psycho. The Smythes are still figuring on waiting Uncle Ned out. They still see Shirley as an imposition that they don't want to have to deal with. And then Joy decides that Shirley's doll needs an operation, and she's going to be the surgeon. Shirley doesn't like this, but Joy insists that she has to do as she's told, since she's nothing but an old charity. This pleasant scene is witnessed by Loop, and he is not very pleased. He heads in to speak to the Smythes. Again, you just get the feeling it's not out of the realm of possibilities that Joy is going to grow up to be a serial killer. After he leaves, Joy decides to play Trainwreck, and she makes this kamikaze run on Shirley's baby carriage. Shirley moves. Joy hits the wall and starts crying. And of course, it's, Shirley's fault that all of this happened. So Ned and Adele overhear all of this. She thinks Ned should speak to Anita about Joy's behavior. He says he has a better idea. He's got something planned. Well, inside, Loop asks the Smythes to let Shirley come live with him. Uncle Ned overhears this, and he doesn't like it. Guy has a genuine affection for Shirley and doesn't want to see her go. He's also, he's kind of used to getting his way and demanding that he has his way. But he's going to now take legal steps to adopt Shirley. This is an interesting conflict. You expect the Smythes are going to be involved in a lot of problems, but here you have two people who are on Shirley's side going up against one another, for loving, but maybe also selfish reasons, kind of for both of them. It's a nice twist to the tale. Well, Loop says he'll fight him in court, and he storms out. Adele follows, and Loop is still pretty bitter towards her, but she tries to convince him that she had nothing to do with any of this. She tells him she's on his side, because if Shirley means so much to you, then you're the one who should have her. For a child, love counts more than anything. He says, just for a child, huh? And she says, for anyone. So this wrinkle sort of leads to a rapprochement between Loop and Adele. Nice framing on this scene. It's storming outside. Anita is putting Joy to bed. Naturally, Joy is being a little jerk, while we have Shirley in the background praying not to be outdone in the a-hole department. Anita then scolds Shirley for having that awful little dog in her bed. She doesn't want him in the bedroom, but he's hiding in there already, and Shirley doesn't come clean. Well, naturally, Joy sees the dog, starts screaming for Mama so she can tell on Shirley. So Shirley decides to take Rags downstairs. When she does, she overhears the Smythes complaining about Shirley and worrying that Uncle Ned might leave all his money to her. Maybe they can bribe that aviator to take her out of the state, etc. So here we're setting up the crisis. Every old melodrama needs a good crisis. Shirley sneaks back upstairs and gets dressed. She and Rags are going on the lam. Back at the airport, Loop is trying to figure out how to make some money so he can hire some lawyers. Shirley arrives soaking wet. Loop gets the down low on what's happening and knows he has to do something to get her out of that house. The next morning, it's still raining cats and dogs, and Loop gets the news that 2 mail planes are missing. All transcontinental planes have been ordered grounded. He tells Shirley that after breakfast, she's got to go back to the Smythe household, unfortunately. The Smythes at that moment are getting some shocking news themselves. Uncle Ned announces that he's about to change his will, but he's just setting up a trust fund for Shirley. They have nothing to worry about as long as they behave themselves. If this was a murder mystery, Uncle Ned would have just signed his death warrant. Thankfully, it's not. At this moment, Joy rushes downstairs to let them know that Shirley is gone. She ran away. Uncle Ned decides she must have gone to that aviator fellow. He wants the police contacted, and he wants her brought home. And then a break for Loop, and a dangerous break. Some bigwig has papers that have to be in New York the next day. His pilot refuses to fly them, so he's willing to pay big money to anyone who will do the job. Ned now has a way to hire those lawyers if he survives the experience. This is where the death of Shirley's mother pays dividends as a story element. If a loving, widowed, single mother can be hit by a car and killed on Christmas, nobody is safe in this film. It also shows how dedicated he is to Shirley and her welfare, that he's willing to go to all this risk. Well, Loop says goodbye to Shirley and explains that he's got to make this trip to earn money so he can adopt her. She'll have to go back to the Smythes, while he's gone so he can go make the trip. She agrees, and off he goes. But while they're positioning the plane on the field, Smythe and a detective show up and hassle Loop, even say he can be charged with kidnapping, but he tells them he sent Shirley home. So they leave. But Shirley has seen all of this, and she runs out to the field and sneaks aboard Loop's plane. Honestly, I did not see this twist coming either. I assumed it was going to be Loop takes the airplane up and he's believed missing, and it's a big, and then he finally shows up, and then, he manages to get back to Shirley. So I built a whole thing in my head that went absolutely nowhere. Well, back at the house, they realize Shirley has not returned. So they figure that Loop did, in fact, kidnap the little girl. So the police are called in. Loop hears the news on the radio. All airports are on the lookout for his plane. Loop laughs at first, and then Shirley taps him on the shoulder. And this ain't good, and he knows it. So he's going to have to make a decision. And whatever he decides, it's not going to come out good for him. Back at the house, Uncle Ned tells the Smythes that he blames them for this. If you hadn't been so selfish, if you'd just been a little kinder, that child would never have left here. Why, you people have everything to make life worthwhile. Youth and health and money, and yet you were too mean and too narrow to share it with a little child who had nothing, but who had more than you'll ever have. It's a good speech, and the Smythes look genuinely ashamed of themselves at that moment. Maybe they can be redeemed after all by the end of this film. Up in the air, it's getting really rough. Loop has her sing the Lollipop song to keep their minds off of it, but as she begins to sing the song, the airplane busts a gas line, and Loop calls in to whoever can hear that he's abandoning ship, but the radio's dead, so nobody's going to hear. Do you love me? And she hugs him. Oh, you could love me tighter than that, because we're bailing out. So he's trying to get her to hold on tight, because they're going to have to, yeah. Honestly, I did not see this twist coming either. We see them descending through the stormy skies, lightning flashes around them. The descent special effects here are actually pretty good. When they land, it looks like a mountainous area. The wind catches the parachute, and Loop is struggling to keep them from being swept to their deaths over a cliff. And he just makes it. Well, the newspapers report that the aviator and child have been rescued, and he's accused of kidnapping. Also, dope convicts parole rocks party circles. Another twist I didn't see coming. So it goes to court. The judge asks Loop what he can offer the child. Not very much. I haven't a lot of money, and I haven't a fine home, but I love Shirley, and I know she loves me. I'd do anything in the world for her. The judge smiles at that answer and glances at Shirley, who's sitting with Adele and Joy. Joy probably should get used to being in a courtroom, because I don't think this is going to be her last visit. Also, check out Joy's face there. Jane Withers is like always on in this movie. Like I said, very impressed with her acting in this film. The judge calls Shirley to come up to the bench with him. Then he asks Shirley who she would like to live with. Well, she says she wants to live with him, pointing to Loop, and I'd like to live with him too, pointing to Uncle Ned, and to her too, pointing to Adele. So the judge sends all the lawyers out of the courtroom. They seem pretty annoyed at that. He adjourns to his chambers with only Uncle Ned and Adele. Well, after a few minutes, the bailiff calls Loop in, and it looks like Uncle Ned is going to win this one. But the judge calls Loop over to an adjoining room, and there he finds Adele. Adele approaches and shows him that ring that he gave to Shirley. She says she wants to find out if this really is a magic ring, because she's in trouble. You want Shirley, and I want Shirley. If you think hard for a minute, can't you figure a way out? I don't get you at all. Oh dear, do I have to propose? Well, I did the last time, so he's actually pretty cool about all that. No, you don't have to propose. Maybe this all happened for a good reason, and this time it will last forever. Well, Uncle Ned, who got Shirley? We did. Come up and see us sometime. Oh, Papa, now we don't have to be nice to Uncle Ned anymore. Smack. So no redemption for the Smythes, but a happy ending for everybody else. Adele and Luke are going to get married, adopt Shirley. Uncle Ned's going to go live with them. And the Smythes, they can just do whatever the Smythes are going to do. So I thought there were going to be more like really dramatic choices that had to be made. Like Luke's going to have to give up entirely on Shirley or what have you. But not so much. It was more like luck and a bit of kindness and wisdom sorting things out in the end, which is not bad. Like I said, the performances are good, really all around. Jane did this amazing job as Joy. She's just absolutely awful. Shirley Temple is extremely cute. Everybody did a good job in it. So it is well acted throughout. But again, it's well acted, but it's definitely directed more for children. So you don't get like, the kind of intense scenes you would get in a film noir or in a steamy romance or something like that. But for what it is, it's good performances. Is it a Christmas movie? Part of it takes place on Christmas. Much of it takes place afterwards. But I think with themes about love and family and what really makes people wealthy and happy in life, I think there's a Christmas theme in there for sure. There used to be a proud tradition in this country of TV stations showing cheap movies during Christmas vacation to keep kids entertained. Babes in Toyland, It's a Wonderful Life, things like that. Sometimes movies that would go on to become classics and all of a sudden, not be just shown all over the time, all over the channels, all the time. This was a traditional Christmas movie for the Christmas season. You got the kids, at home from school, that kind of thing. So they put these on. So I think it counts as a Christmas movie, even though maybe not Christmas to the extent that Miracle on 34th Street is, or It's a Wonderful Life. But it's a good movie. I think it's something you could show your kids. Again, with modern day attention spans, it could be a little tough, but I think it's safe to show kids. It's got a death in it. But I mean, Bambi did as well, and kids used to watch that. So, you have to use your best judgment, but I liked it. I mean, obviously I'm not the target audience for Shirley Temple movies, but I was happy I watched it. I think it might actually be the first time I've ever watched a Shirley Temple movie, like start to finish all the way through. I've seen little clips here and there, over the years, but I liked it. I had a good time with this one. Hopefully you will too if you give it a shot. If you have already given it a shot and you have some comments on it, please leave that in the comments. Not just a clever name. Let me know what you think of this one. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this little Christmas movie review, please give it a like, maybe subscribe to the channel, maybe share with a friend. That would be very, very cool. But until next time, God bless everybody. Please be kind to one another, especially this time of year. Have a little bit of fun, especially this time of year. And I will see you hopefully again soon in Dad's Den of Pop Culture. Bye-bye.